The main focus of our gathering here tonight is to process or unpack the teaching that Lama Tashi gave here last Tuesday evening. Lama Tashi is a Tibetan monk who is a Geshe Larampa, the highest academic degree in the Buddhist monastic education system, as well as a chant master. And I thought it would be useful to be able to offer just a few comments and characterizations of what he taught around a set of topics that include how to set an altruistic motivation for our practice, what it means to take refuge, a set of practices from Mahayana Buddhism called the 7 perfect, air quotes, practices, this concept of bodhicitta or an altruistic mindset. We'll do a little bit of work with mantra and conclude with dedicating the merit of our practice together toward the benefit of all. Lama Tashi began last week sharing some comments around the importance of setting motivation. And whether we call it motivation or setting our intention, starting with a positive one is key. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is my root teacher, emphasizes the importance of beginning any sort of spiritual endeavor with clarifying why are we actually doing this in the first place. And in this context of Mahayana Buddhism, one of the main schools of Buddhism, it's important that our spiritual endeavors are characterized by compassion, altruism, and a desire to be of benefit to all beings. The Dalai Lama emphasizes that motivation in the Buddhist context revolves around 2 core motivations. One is not to harm other people. I think we can pretty easily get on board with that. And to do good for others. So if we really just want to simplify things, our motivation can be to not harm anyone and to at least have an intention to be of some benefit to others. And this might involve things off of the cushion, like living a lifestyle that refrains from causing harm, taking responsibility for our actions, etc. When we reflect on that second motivation, to have some intention to do good for others, this is, as Lama Tashi described it, an aspiration to contribute positively to the mental and physical well-being of all sentient beings. So what is a sentient being? A being who feels. So that generally refers to any human or animal, but also beings in other realms of existence. And the second motivation around doing good for others underscores the interconnectedness of us all and indicates some level of shared responsibility for each other's welfare. So again, when we talk about setting motivation, these 2 core principles of doing no harm and doing some good for others are key. So we are going to have some time for group reflection and discussion later on. For this first part, I just wanted to review some of the high points of Lama Tashi's talk so we're all on the same page. So Lama Tashi went on last week to pose 2 questions that are kind of existential ones. Why am I here? And that can be a way to probe into what our motivation is. What brings me to a practice of meditation? And that could be something around reducing our own suffering. Or it could be something like becoming a Buddha. Then the second question, if we were to become a Buddha, for what purpose? It'd be nice to kind of hang out in some pure realm. But the whole aspiration to become a Buddha eventually in some future lifetime is tied intimately in with being of greater benefit to sentient beings. So if I want to try to be helpful, which sometimes I manage to be a teensy bit helpful, I really need to make sure I'm solid in myself, that I'm taking care of myself, that I'm physically and mentally healthy, because before I am able to pour someone else's cup, I need to fill my own cup. So compassion for ourselves and others is essential to this process. Let me see how I can condense here. Yeah, and this practice of setting motivation prompts us to contemplate our presence and our meaning and purpose in life. And I think I can move on to the next part. I want to make sure that I'm saving enough time for our discussion later on. So let's just pause for a moment to reflect for ourselves on our motivation and these concepts of doing no harm and doing some good, as well as why are we here and for what purpose. Thank you. So the next topic I'd like to revisit from Lama Tashi's teaching has to do with the purpose and role of mantras. So what is a mantra, one might ask? And they can be thought of as sacred sounds. And there was one particular mantra called the Vajra mantra. Vajra means either thunderbolt or diamond strong, indestructible mantra that Lama Tashi shared with us. And it's a series of 3 syllables. The first one is Om, the second one is Ah, the third one is Hum. And in the context of this tradition, Tibetan Buddhism, particularly the Vajrayana school, these mantras are used for the role of purifying oneself and others, as well as invoking blessings. And the power of sound and voice is harnessed through this practice of chanting. So it's not just like a series of melodious syllables or a good song, but rather a profound vehicle for expressing one's devotion and invoking the blessings of enlightened beings. So just a couple of more items on the significance of this mantra before we go into a short practice of it. The preface here is that it's posited that we have 3 quote-unquote doors through which we engage in our world. And these 3 doors are our bodies, we engage in physical action, our minds, we think stuff and have mental actions. And then the third one is a little more counterintuitive. It's our speech. But if we think about the ways that we interact with each other, either verbally or in writing, we can see that speech is another form of action. So these are the ways in which we interact with our environment, and these 3 syllables that are part of this mantra, Om, Ah, and Hum, symbolize these 3 aspects of body, speech, and mind. In particular, Om symbolizes the body. And each of these syllables has a spot in the body. This first one's a little counterintuitive. the syllable for the body is actually at the crown of our head. When I first heard that, I was like, what? It sounds like mind to me. But it's actually mind in many Eastern systems is located in the heart. So whom symbolizes mind, and that's at our heart. And then it's like the syllable you can feel it right in your throat. That's where that syllable that symbolizes speech is located. And then when we combine these three mantras, these Om, and Hum, we invoke blessings upon all these three essential aspects of our being. And as we recite this mantra, as we'll do in a moment, we can visualize, if you would like, the qualities of enlightened beings and their physical form, their speech, their mind. And then we can also visualize that these blessings are helping our own body, speech, and mind to become pure. And so that this practice of working with mantra and chanting can be really transformative, allowing us to experience the joy, contentment, and detachment that eventually come with enlightenment. So again, these three mantras, Om, and Hum, are a powerful tool for purification and blessing, and through them, we can align ourselves with higher dimensional qualities of ourselves. Okay, so let's actually spend a few minutes doing this Vajra mantra together. And then we'll ease from that into just a short silent meditation afterwards, where we can just sit with the feeling that's evoked from having chanted these syllables. And then after that, we'll move into a short break. So this practice that I'll lead is from a monk named Lama Tashi, who was one of the first to bring Tibetan Buddhism to the West. He was the founder of the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana tradition. So this is going to be loosely based on the way that he guided this practice. Okay, so let's again take a moment to find a posture that supports our well-being and some semblance of alertness, as much as the time of the evening allows. And then we can just put our hands in whatever position is comfortable. And you're welcome to close your eyes so we can focus on that vast inner landscape. And then visualize, if you will, a white Om at the upper center of your head. So this Om can be the English letters O-M. And their color is white, located at the crown of the head. And then at the throat, we can visualize the red syllable A-H. And then at the heart is a blue Hum, H-U-M. And now concentrating on that white Om at the crown of the head. And as we make the sound Om to ourselves or softly out loud, we can visualize that radiant white light emanates from the syllable Om, goes down our central energetic channel, and fills our entire body with blissful, radiant, white light energy. All conceptions and impure energy of body are cleansed and purified. Let's continue for a minute or so, repeating the sound Om, either to ourselves or softly out loud, visualizing that our entire body from head to toe is completely full of blissful, radiant, white light energy. Om, 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 Om. And then letting go of the mantra. Just remain still for a moment, just not reacting, not fabricating. Just resting in pure natural awareness, letting go. Now we'll move on to purification of speech through the mantra Ah. So let's focus now on that red Ah syllable at the throat center, like a sun at sunset. Recognizing that this red Ah is the pure speech of the Buddhas and enlightened masters. And as we sound Ah for ourselves or out loud, we can visualize that radiant red light emanates from the syllable, goes down that central energetic channel, and fills our entire body with blissful, radiant red light energy. And as it does so, all impure conceptions and energies of our speech are cleansed and purified. Ah, 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 ah. And again, just resting without conceptual elaboration, bathing in this radiant red light. Now moving to the blue whom at our heart center and to the purification of mind or consciousness. So visualizing again at the heart on a moon disk stands this radiant blue whom. Recognizing this blue whom as the non-dual wisdom of all the Buddhas and enlightened masters. And our hearts are pure, cool, and calm, opened by the radiant light of the moon and the whom syllable, from which infinite blue light radiates and fills our entire body. Filled with light, there is no room for dualistic concepts. All narrow thoughts disappear. All indecisive minds disappear. All obsessed minds disappear. And then as we sound the whom, we can feel that infinite blue light embrace the entire universe. Om. 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 Feel and be without expectation. Allowing boundaries between self and other and world to dissolve into one taste. Thank you for your practice. Just a few closing words on this meditation, and there are two essential experiences that we can find through this meditation, one called wisdom and the second called method. And this is another way to refer to the two wings of the bird flying to enlightenment. It's just sometimes in the Tibetan Buddhist context, method is substituted for compassion, but it includes it. So the wisdom experience is this intensive, unbounded awareness. And the method experience comes when we get distracted, like we always will, and use that experience of distraction to regenerate loving kindness. So they kind of play off of each other. So when we find that our concentration is good in meditation, we can place our attention on wisdom. When we find ourselves distracted, we can generate loving kindness to bring ourselves back. And this can help us with the higher purpose of meditation to awaken us from our deep sleep of ignorance to universal reality. And mantra can help us touch in to that vast, wider reality. So let's take 5 to 7, actually no, we have cookies. Let's take a 10-minute break and return at 8 o'clock. Welcome back, everyone. So next, fueled by a cookie high, we will do a brief review of this practice of the 7 perfections. So this is going to be just a quick review of what Lama Tashi discussed with some commentary mixed in, and then we'll have a chance to process in a couple of small groups and one large group on Zoom. Okay, so this framework of the Mahayana 7 perfections is a core principle of spiritual development in Tibetan Buddhism. So it offers a structured path for us to follow towards enlightenment. But I want to emphasize that this framework that Lama Tashi shared is just one of many frameworks for a Dharma practice. So it's not like we have got to dump the baby out with the bathwater and start over. This is just another way to try it on, see if it fits. And these 7 perfections, as they're called, include taking refuge, purification, which you could translate as transmutation, rejoicing, 3 types of bodhicitta or altruistic mindset, and then dedicating the merit of our practice. So there are a lot of lists in Buddhism. There's like 7 of this, 3 of that, 37 of that, 5 million of this. And so this might be confusing. These 7 perfections, they're different than the 10 perfections that appear in the Pali Canon and the 6 perfections or paramitas that are part of the Mahayana Canon. So these are a little bit different. So I thought that might have been a point of confusion last week. So this translation of perfections can be a little bit troublesome because it kind of can invoke a sense that something is unattainable or requiring us to relapse into perfectionism. So if we look at the etymology of the term, this is according to the Buddhist scholar Donald Lopez, he traces it back to mean not just excellence or perfection, but to break it up into para and mita, with para meaning beyond, or the other shore, and then mita meaning that which has arrived. So then together, paramita could mean that which has gone beyond, which another translation from Alex Berzin, I believe, is far-reaching attitude. So that might be a little easier to stomach than perfections. Okay, so the first of these 7 practices is taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And this is kind of like the gateway to Buddhism. And this is, so it can be easy to understand or misunderstand these as requesting help or relying on the support of something that's fundamentally outside of ourselves, which isn't exactly as it really is. One of the points Lama Tashi emphasizes is that when we take refuge in the Buddha, it's not just the historical Buddha that lived 2,500 years ago, but when we take refuge in the Buddha, we're expressing our deep desire to become like a Buddha. So he mentioned that this part of the Tibetan word for refuge means go. So we're going towards becoming a Buddha ourselves. So we're going beyond our limited sense of self to attain the qualities of, lodged in my throat. Yeah, so we're going beyond the limited sense of ourselves to attain the unlimited qualities of a Buddha, as well as the Dharma and Sangha. Okay, so qualities of why the Buddha is a reliable source of refuge. So Lama Tashi mentioned 4 key qualities. One is that the Buddha was free from suffering. Second is that the Buddha was an expert in saving others. Third, the Buddha had equal compassion for all beings, irrespective of their actions. So there's no discrimination in his compassion. And fourth, the Buddha doesn't expect anything in return. So these are considered to be 4 marks of a reliable source of refuge. All right. So I was going to lead us in the practice of chanting the refuges, but I think we'll save that up for another time, just so we have enough time for our small groups. All right, so next in the 7 practices is the one that has the troublesome translation of purification. So this isn't necessarily a process of like confession or purification in the Vajrayana context. So in the Vajrayana or Tantric traditions, this process of blessing or purification, as Lama Tashi described it, has 3 distinct phases. First of all, purification, then transformation or transmutation, and then expansion. So the act of purification, and this is as we did in the mantra chanting that we did before the break, we're purifying the obstructions in our body, speech, and mind. So we can think about the act of purification as removing the ordinary qualities of something and its negativities and transforming it into its uncontaminated essence. And there's this concept of nectar that Lama Tashi mentioned that I thought might be a little bit confusing. What is this nectar thing? And so this concept of nectar in Vajrayana is multifaceted. It can be viewed as like a medicinal substance that heals our afflictive emotions, or as an elixir that grants immortality, or more symbolically as a symbol of uncontaminated phenomena. So how can we invoke this process of purification or blessing? One is through the practice of mantra, as we did before. And as we did in that guided meditation, we can imagine the qualities of the Buddhas and their blessings dissolving into the syllables of the mantra and then into ourselves. Let's see, did I miss anything here on purification? Yeah, he told a couple of stories, one of them involving dog food, which I won't repeat. You can go back and watch the YouTube recording on that one. So next in these 7 practices is that of rejoicing. And I will summarize the story Lama Tashi told about this one, because I think it's so powerful. So this story involved a beggar and a king. And this beggar was able to accumulate more merit than a king who made these grand, voluminous, expensive offerings. And the beggar's constant rejoicing in other people's virtuous acts helped him to accumulate great merit. So rejoicing is an easy way to accumulate positive energy and merits. And Lama Tashi semi-joked that even if we don't want to engage in intense meditation or other practices, we can just rejoice in the virtuous acts of other people. Because that's a great and simple way to accumulate good karma or positive potential. Right. So just breezing through these 7 practices, the next 3, numbers 4, 5, and 6, refer to different types of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means the mind of enlightenment, or an altruistic mindset. It has other meanings as well, but I won't go into detail there. But there's these three types of bodhicitta: are ultimate bodhicitta, which is our highest aspiration to seek Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. And then the second type of bodhicitta is aspiring bodhicitta, sometimes called wishing bodhicitta. So it's the heartfelt wish to, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. And then the third type of bodhicitta is engaged bodhicitta, which is basically, I'm not just going to wish this, I'm going to do this thing. I am committed to doing this, whatever that takes. So 4, 5, and 6 are ultimate, aspiring, and engaged bodhicitta. And then the seventh in this set of perfect practices is the dedication of merit. So in this process, and we'll practice at the end of our session this evening, is dedicating everything good that we've accumulated through our practice towards the benefit and well-being of all beings. These dedications of merit can be extensive, including prayers for enlightenment, long life prayers for great beings, prayers for the prevention of natural disasters and pandemics, cessation of wars, which is painfully needed at this time, and invoking the peace that our world desperately needs. So by dedicating the merits of our practice, we exemplify the compassionate heart that is at the core of Buddhist teachings. So that's a sweeping overview or review of the 7 perfections that Lama Tashi covered. So with your permission, I'd like to move on now to about 9 or 10 minutes where at UU, we can split into maybe 2 or 3 groups, and on Zoom, Anna has very kindly agreed to facilitate a discussion. So we'll take those 10 minutes, and then we'll come back, and if there are any sharings for our large group, any questions, we can have a few minutes for that before we dedicate the merit. So the 2 prompts that I came up with for our small groups, first one is, what are some feasible and meaningful ways that you could bookend your meditation sessions with the practices of taking refuge and setting motivation at the beginning and dedicating the merit at the end? So how can we bring this down to earth in terms of our daily-ish practice? What are some feasible and meaningful ways, including bookending your meditation session? The second question that I'll offer, how could the practices of chanting, mantra, and visualization enhance your spiritual practice and/or daily life? So those are the 2 prompts. You're welcome to talk about something different than that to help unpack or process what Lama Tashi offered. So let's meet back at 8:21.
Okay. Hello, Zoom Sangha. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
And I guess now, instead of talking about chocolate, ice cream, and olives, we'll spend, although that could be related, it could be related. We can talk about Matt's questions to us, or anything else that anyone would like to talk about, I think, about their experience of listening to Lama Tashi last week. And so I would suggest, if either of those questions spoke to you, and I'll give those to you again and again, anything else that comes up for you, please just chime in. So the first question essentially was asking, is there a way that feels doable, approachable, good to you to bookend your meditation practice with either taking refuge and or setting a motivation or an intention, and then perhaps ending with a dedication of merit if you're not already doing that, or maybe you are, and what that would be like. And then the other is, how could the practices of chanting, mantra, and visualization enhance your spiritual practice? So does anyone have any thoughts at all that you would like to share?
I like the last one.
Would you like to?
The mantra and chanting. I think they can be powerful, powerful tools.
Do you want to say a little bit more, Eliza? And you don't have to, but if you'd like to say how they feel powerful.
Well, I know that when I've been on retreat, and I can remember Sharon leading us in chanting, and we had the translations, that it really, I felt that it just gave a deeper dimension to the practice. I don't use mantra that much in chanting, but that experience and the little bit of chanting we did with Lama Tashi sort of supported that deepening sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
Phyllis, bowing in. I also really like the idea of more chant, mantra, and visualization, because if the first establishment of mindfulness is awareness of the body, I know for myself that I've spent a lot of time not really being aware of my body or fully in my body, and that I still find that I need more of that connection, putting it all, connecting it all. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis. It sounds like it's like an anchoring experience to be able to something about producing that sound, and then you hear it and feel it in your own body. Yeah. What else?
I particularly like when we can do chant when it's in a group. There's something about the resonance of hearing the sound. It sort of takes you out of yourself. It's a really nice way to feel interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
It just, some of us grew up in different religious traditions where having beautiful music, right, was really uplifting. It sort of pulled you in to your spiritual practice. And I think chanting can be that way. But I love to do it with others, not something I do alone on my cushion. Maybe I should try it.
Yeah, it enhances that sense of connection, and almost it makes experiential the practicing together. That time already? Oh, no.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
It's 8:17.
Oh,
3-4 minutes.
thank you. Yeah. Anyone else about chanting or mantras?
I'll mention Jerry knows from Noonday. Today I asked the very question. I said, I'm in a group on Saturdays for 3 weeks straight, where mantra is an important aspect of what he's teaching. And my question was, oh, is that like following the breath? It's another way of anchoring, but listening, reminded by Matt and here in this discussion, no, it's a very different thing. Mantra is very different. There's a whole lot more going on there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm learning a lot too.
I thought it was akin to watching, like standing on a beach in the stillness and watching the tides go in and out and hearing that, and just that feeling of support and wholeness. It was wonderful.
Mm.
I am curious, does anybody have any ideas about how to bookend? I'd love to know if anybody has any ideas.
Thanks, Jane.
Well, I think that I like the idea of setting the intention, or even really, that's kind of funny to me, asking, why am I here? I find that both humorous and deepening question. So I think sitting down and saying, well, why am I sitting down? Other than I just said I was going to do this.
Begin to think about wrapping up in about a minute.
Yeah. So that's going to be something I'm going to do. Take a second to think, why am I doing this? And then I think I'm going to try to do a little chant at the end for myself.
I like that. I know I don't know about others, but I definitely don't have a practice. When I sit to do my practice, I don't have a practice of saying, why am I doing this practice? And really anchoring that way. Anyone else? Sorry, we can't mute them. Oh, thank you all so much.
It was good to be with all of you.
Michael.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. So let's thank you for your participation in those small groups. So let's, over the next few minutes, just open it up to sharings from the room and on Zoom. I have a handheld for our in-person participants. So who would like to start us off with sharing what came out of our discussions? Yes, John, please.
Well, I wanted to thank Matt for facilitating Lama Tashi's visit last week. I thought it was really fun to see such a different culture than what I'm personally used to. This wasn't coming out of the discussions. I'm sorry. I just had a comment about Lama Tashi. I was really struck by his laugh when he was telling his stories, and it was even more fascinating to think that he's probably told those stories many times in Dharma talks, and yet he still had that amazing full-bellied laugh as if he was hearing it the first time. And I'm wondering if I can't help but think that part of that comes from his presence, his awareness, as if it's in some way he really is hearing it for the first time, because he's right there and then saying it. But I was kind of hoping to get your take on it.
Yeah, I think he's just a happy guy, and he loves stories, and I've been fortunate to be able to spend some time with him and just kind of hang out, and he just loves telling stories, and some of them are quite long, but beautiful, and just that beautiful laugh, so genuine. Thanks, John.
Missed last week. Missed a lot of it.
That's because that was.
Oh, I know a lot.
Yeah.
Anyone here in the room? Oh, great, Darby.
So I started swimming, which I'd never really cared about doing before, and I am now able to do it because I learned the breathing, and it's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so after Lama Tashi's talk last week, I wasn't counting. I was doing Om Ah Ooh, And it was really, it just made the swim. It was great.
I love it. Yeah, and that's the kind of way to work it into our daily life. I do the same thing on hiking. I'll, do mantras, and yeah, when I was in Yellowstone hiking alone, and was worried about bears coming. Of course, I had my bear spray, but also I chanted my Vajrasattva and protection mantras out loud because they said you're supposed to sing something. So yeah, just that kind of organic thing. Yeah, that's great. Casey, yeah.
So I actually had to look him up. His name is Venerable Nick Komahavong. He is a Thailand Buddhist monk, and I really look up to him because he's a little bit older than me. I think he's like 35, but I really take refuge in his teachings. And in one of his teachings, he teaches more like how you can integrate Buddhist teachings to somebody who's not Buddhist and who doesn't identify in any way. And one of the things was after his meditations, when he was in his lay life, he put $1 in a piggy bank, and then when he would go to his temple, I think he did it every few months because he was very busy, but he donated all of that money. And just knowing that your meditation is connected to a good cause and a community is really beautiful to me. And so I would love to start doing that. And I think it will place intentions in the very right place.
Great, Casey. Thank you. We might have time for one more share.
Well, I'll share that. I'm glad you asked about the dedication of merit, Matt, because I've started to become a big fan of sharing the dedication of merit at the end of particularly a group practice, because I love that it invites us to pause and notice what benefits we've accrued. How am I different now since I took the time to be here and to sit and to gather those benefits. But I also think the reminder that we're connected, particularly these days when I think many of us are struggling with the war and violence in the world, and it feels somehow wrong to sit and practice without remembering those in the world who are unsafe. And that dedication is a way to connect to the world and for the benefit of all beings just feels so right. And so it's become something a little more regular in my practice.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mary Louise. All right. Well, I think that's a good transition into our final piece. So before we do a formal dedication of merit, let's just take a moment to pause and reflect on the things that Mary Louise just shared, to call into our compassionate heart space all those who are embroiled in the wars. And those afflicted by natural disasters, and then widening the circle to all beings who cannot escape birth, aging, sickness, and death. and making space for any personal aspirations that we may have for ourselves and others. So rather than a traditional dedication of merit, I wanted to share a contemporary one that I find very powerful, and this is from a group that I'm active in called Recovery Dharma. And it goes like this. Refuge does not arise in a particular place, but in the space within the goodness of our hearts. When this space is imbued with wisdom, respect, and love, we call it Sangha. We hope that the pain of suffering, trauma, and feeling apart actually leads us back toward the heart, and that we might understand compassion, wisdom, and change ever more deeply. As we have learned from practice, great pain does not erase goodness, but in fact informs it. May we make the best use of our practice and whatever freedom arises from our efforts here tonight. May this be a cause and condition for less suffering and more safety in our world. Thank you, dear friends. Be well.